This is Critical Commentary with Maurice Williams. Today we're going to talk about the mass shootings that happened over the weekend, and we're going to discuss Israel's continued attempt to influence the youth. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes gonna talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about their 2 genders. I sat next to her hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch, baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog, she FaceTime, but I never call. Has America turned into Chicago? There have been 325 mass shootings this year. Basically, there's a mass shooting every day. There were 6 this weekend, almost too many to cover in one episode. Sunday, there was a mass shooting at a Mormon church in Michigan, where 4 people died and 8 were wounded. The Michigan shooter was a white drug addict. He rammed the truck into a Latter-day Saints church, then opened fire on a bunch of random people, then set the church on fire. Sounds like black fatigue and gang violence to me. Then in North Carolina, a white guy drove a boat up to a restaurant and killed 3 people and wounded 5. Both of these suspects were military personnel. Military personnel actually overrepresents in mass shootings. They are about 6% of the population, but account for about 25% of the mass shootings. Dear white people, do y'all still like per capita? So often we hear about black crime and black violence and murder in places like Chicago. However, through recent events, we've heard about transgender shooters, liberal shooters, and now white shooters opening fire on mass groups of people. The narrative keeps changing. It seems like America has a violence problem and not just a black-on-black crime problem. People like Elon Musk and others on the right have been tweeting and talking a lot about the epidemic of black violence. But as we've seen, not just in the media, but also now social media, is so much violence happening that America can't help but have to confront white violence. And based upon the fact that the white violence is not taking place by one specific demographic, as they tried to say it was the transgenders behind much of the violence, and they were saying that it was hormonal based. Then when it started being non-transgenders, they tried to say it was liberals because they were in cities. Then when it started happening in small town America, like this weekend, it happened in Michigan, it happened in Michigan, Louisiana, North Carolina. It happened outside of just liberal places, and it's happening in small towns, which is similar to conservatives. And the shooter in North Carolina was a conservative. So the crime problem cannot be described by just one small group. It's a small percentage of a wide group of whites. So we have to start looking at white crime similar to as we look at black crime as its own epidemic. It's important as Americans that we face the truth and work on what is causing our society to have this problem and address it so that we can reduce crime and reduce murder in America. In other news, previously we discussed Bibi Netanyahu meeting with influencers. Last week it was Jewish influencers that I happen to know, Deborah Leah, well not know, but know of, Deborah Leah and Emily Austin. So yesterday I also found a clip of a TikToker discussing Christian influencers meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, and here you have it.
Yesterday, I got the honor of meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu as part of a special focus group for Christian conservative Gen Zers, and we were essentially addressing the concerns that we had, right? There's clearly been a growing divide. He wanted to know why. He wanted to know what Israel could be doing better. He wanted to understand where we were coming from, and to his credit, he did listen to us extremely attentively and took in a lot of what we were saying. And from our end, while of course we were polite and we were there also trying to form more unity, we were were asking him the hard questions that a lot of people from our generation have been raising concerns about. For example, and the same way he listened to us and took in our criticisms, I'm truly hoping that you guys will listen to the answer. AIPAC. AIPAC is something that I see all the time. Number one, AIPAC is not an Israeli organization. It has no ties whatsoever to the government of Israel. It's not foreign lobbying. It's a lobbyist group that happens to be lobbying for a certain group of people, right? And this is not unique to Israel. There are multiple countries that do this, and there's multiple different groups that do this. For some reason, people just attach on to AIPAC, despite the fact that AIPAC makes up less than 5% of the lobbying. So if you have a problem with lobbying like me, that's totally fine. I'm against AIPAC because I'm against lobbying. But you can't just hone in on one specific group. If you're going to be against it, then be against it for everybody. Moving on from that, we were asking questions about these rumors that Israel has been going out and funding people. And no, none of us were paid for that meeting, but I wish. Bibi, if you want to write the 150 million check, go for it. But we asked about funding, and as he explained, Israel is not offering to fund anybody. They're not trying to get involved in American political advocacy groups. That has never happened. And if you're concerned about this, who you should be concerned about is Qatar, because they are doing this. They are going out and funding these universities and these political organizations. Many of these protests/riots that you see destroying our cities, a lot of that has foreign funding from Qatar. And yet people are silent about it, or they're pointing the finger at Israel for something that they're not even doing. The last thing that we really touched on was the aid. People don't know this, but Netanyahu's first address to Congress was to say that they didn't want aid. Jimmy Carter, who was a notoriously anti-Israel president, is actually who started this because he saw that Israel was building up their air force and he didn't want them to. So he gave them aid that they could only use to buy military weapons from us, and they had to agree to shut down their manufacturers. So now they're dependent in a way on this aid for military operations that America doesn't want them to lose because we use it as a leash on them. And I think people need to understand that maybe a little bit more, but it was an extremely incredible opportunity. I'm very grateful for his time, and I really hope some positive change comes out of it, and some people will do some more research rather than believing everything they see online.
There's a lot to unpack there. So this is illustrating that Israel is actively trying to counter the negative narratives that are happening in America, and they're doing so through the social media influencers, as we've discussed before. But I think they're doing it in the wrong way. So I don't think you should silence dissenters, and that's something that I came across that some people on social media are already saying has happened now that TikTok has been purchased by people that are being described as Zionists. They're Jewish. They may not be Zionists. And they're, as this TikToker is doing, she met with Bibi Netanyahu, and immediately she's saying, it's not necessarily propaganda, but she's saying things that she learned from Bibi and things that they discuss, which has a slight Israel bias or Israel slant. Not necessarily bias, but an Israel slant. So based upon the crackdown that I'm seeing on, or hearing about on X and other platforms, and the crackdown is not surprising because last week we talked about how Bibi wanted to speak to Elon. It seems that he may have already spoken to him. I don't think that this crackdown will work the way Bibi's intending, because in the younger generation, we go for authenticity. We want honesty. So if we're used to talking about Palestine and used to talking about Gaza, if our comments are now being removed or our posts are being either shadow banned or having limited reach, we're going to put two and two together and understand now that China is not in control of TikTok and Israel is in control of TikTok, it's because Israel is in control of TikTok that posts that are pro-Gaza are being limited in reach. And it's that reason why certain comments and things that are seen as anti-Israel are being somewhat suppressed. A better approach by Israel would be to have the influencers speak to the people who comment on Instagram and X and have a dialogue with them. Maybe the American public is not 100% in agreement with Israel, but we may be able to find a lot of things we have common ground on. I do believe that the ADL, for example, which recently removed some of the names on their hate list and also said that they were open to changing the way that they describe hate groups. I do believe that Israel is on the right track. Well, not Israel. The ADL, who, see, this gets tricky. I guess when we talk about ADL, Mossad, Israel, the IDF, and the Jews, people kind of take each of those entities and use them interchangeably. But the ADL is run by Jewish people, and they influence American politics. So they are Jewish and they are pro-Israel. So I do believe that the ADL is on the right track with at least acknowledging that their way of describing hate groups and their narrative and perspective is not doing well now, and they're at least open to publicly acknowledging, being open to hearing what other groups have to say and potentially changing their narrative. They haven't gone as far as changing the definition of anti-Semitism, which they already did, and that's something I personally have an issue with. I would like them to not say that just because you criticize Israel, you're being anti-Semitic. I think that anti-Semitism is when you dislike Jewish people or dislike Arabs, because Arabs are also Semites. And I believe that if you have a hatred towards them because of their religion, you're anti-Semitic. But if you're only criticizing the Israel government, that should be seen as criticizing any government, whether it's China, whether it's America. In America, we criticize the American government and Americans. We criticize other governments. Israel is the only government that if you criticize them, you're labeled something and you're also dissented. So if America allows freedom of speech, we should have freedom of speech for everyone, including Israel. Now that I've covered topics with Israel twice, we may be covering this some more because this is a topic that I see online a lot. I'm interested in it. I have somewhat of a knowledge about, some knowledge, not a lot, but some knowledge about the historical migration of the people in the diaspora. And seeing that there is some hate online, I'm interested in finding out more to see if there are ways that the anti-Semites or the people who dislike the Jewish culture or the Jewish people, I'm interested in seeing if there are ways that those people and the Jewish people themselves could find common ground, because what I would like to see is less argument, less violence, and just a way that we can coexist, more peacefully as a society. Turning to reactions, there's a clip that I stumbled upon from Emily Saves America that I'm about to play for you guys.
Black fatigue is very real. I worked in nightclubs where the second you say, hi, you can't come in. Oh, because I'm black? No, it's called a list, retard.
I think she's right there. In my personal experience, many times I've been with a group of black friends, and when something goes wrong, my friends will say, they did this because we're black. Or do you think it's because of our race that we had to wait? And it's like, well, what if other people had reservations? There can be more to the story.
Retard. I remember giving this group of black girls the chef's table. I remember she said, what a white cunt. Let me just say, if I were to drop the N-word right now, what would happen? Oh, I'd be on fucking
It's not okay to call white people crackers and white cunts if they haven't done you anything. And I actually would be okay with Emily if she had dropped the N-word then, because I believe everybody has freedom of speech. So somebody uses a racial slur on you, you're welcome to use a racial slur on them. But she is correct. I'm different from most of the people in America. You probably would get fired from your job. So I wouldn't take my advice.
CNN tomorrow.
How do you think white people can do better? Sit down. Sit down. Stop trying.
First of all, I don't listen to fat people. Second of all, I don't listen to fat people who are also uneducated and uninformed. What are we supposed to do? What are we doing that's so wrong?
How did she know whether this young lady was educated? And based on not today, but based on some of the other things I have seen from Emily, I wouldn't call her stupid, but I would say she's not the most educated or the most informed. Some of her takes seem pretty basic and pretty shallow. And in terms of what whites do wrong, I mean, as we discussed earlier in this episode and previous episodes, I mean, whites have their own problems. They may not be as big as blacks, but what are whites doing wrong? I mean, they have white racists, they have white mass shooters, they have whites on welfare. I mean, you do a lot wrong, just like everybody else.
Why are these kids like this? What are they teaching at the universities? What are they seeing online? Genuinely, like, this is black fatigue. What are you saying? We were.
Now, I've already said they have soft races, and I've already talked about white violence. Am I going to have to come up with a new term and coin it white fatigue? Because I know white people are saying they tired of blacks. But blacks are not only tired, we sick and tired of whites.
We were built on slaves. We created everything. Yeah, historically, everybody was slaves. If you ever read a fucking book,
I'm a fair shooter. Slavery, I think the specific term slavery comes from the Slavs, Yugoslavia. So yes, I mean North Africans enslaved the Southern Europe, the Spaniards, the Moors did that. I mean they had slaves in Eastern Europe. They had slaves in Asia. They had slaves in obviously Saharan Africa. Blacks enslaving other blacks. I mean everybody's been enslaved at some point. So I don't think blacks should jump to slavery whenever something goes wrong, or to explain why they're in a position they're currently in. Slavery might have had some effect, but I mean, that's not what's causing the problems today.
I don't know who's telling them that they're so oppressed here. By the way, I have news for you. If you think America's racist, try traveling. Go to China. Let me know how they treat you there. I also think if you're so tired of being around us, why is it the second you guys hit any success and get any money, just like BLM? What did they do? They bought real estate in white neighborhoods.
This is why I said earlier she's not the brightest. So poor people generally move when they get money to either middle class or upper class neighborhoods. She's trying to say that black neighborhoods are poor neighborhoods. But as you know, there are black people across the economic spectrum. So we can't describe black people by the poor unless we're going to describe white people by the white trailer trash.
But what cities are we going into? Black cities, because we are supposedly the ones that commit all the crime.
Well, yeah. Statistically, Jasmine, the crime you should be talking about is black on black crime and then black on white crime.
I mean, guys, if you've been watching the episodes, you already know this is bullshit. Black on black crime is the highest, followed by Hispanic on Hispanic crime, then white on white crime. So had she said black on black crime was the highest and shut her mouth, then she would have been correct. But when she skips over all the other crime and then goes to black on white crime, which happens less than white on white crime and Hispanic on Hispanic crime, it just highlights that for her, I'm not even going to say soft racist. I've heard a few things from her. I'll just call her a straight up racist.
Because there are actual numbers to prove that. I don't even think these people can fucking read.
Sweetie, please bring up the data because I would love to see it and discuss it with you.
Black fatigue, it's very real.
White fatigue is real and it's a new coin. A new term I've just coined. Okay, so before we end this episode, I just want to touch on the last episode. I'll never do a show like that again, guys. I was trying out some new things that the producer wanted me to try. I think they were great ideas. I just wasn't comfortable with them yet. But moving forward, I will always continue to give you guys my honest opinion, what's real, what's raw, and what's me. Thanks for bearing with me as I work on trying to move from just commentating on politics to becoming somewhat of a journalist and a political commentator. I also know that some of my statements are probably going to get clipped and they may become misrepresented, but I love everybody. I love the whites. I love the anti-Semitics. I love the Jews. I love the blacks. I'm just doing this show so that we can work through things. So if people misconstrue it and say that I'm against these other groups, don't listen to it. Also, there are some whites who do bring a negative energy towards blacks. So to those people, my culture reciprocates your energy. If it's fuck us, it's fuck you too. For the majority of Americans who don't have that attitude, I'm always here and willing to talk. Please feel free to leave a comment. I would love to hear your perspective and I would love for you to join in on the conversation. Thanks. See y'all tomorrow. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes gonna talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about their 2 genders. I sat next to hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch, baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog, she FaceTime, but I never